Hello, 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 and welcome once again to CorpusCast. As ever, I'm your host, Robbie Love. I'm a linguist at Aston University, and you're listening to the Aston Originals podcast, all about corpus linguistics and what it can do for society. As you know by now, in each episode, I interview one or more researchers to find out how corpus linguistics is informing the present and shaping the future of the study of language, with applications in education, health, technology, and many others. Now for some recent news in the corpus linguistics conference world. I had the pleasure of announcing recently at the Corpus Linguistics Conference in Lancaster in July that the next Corpus Linguistics Conference, CL 2025, will be co-hosted by us at Aston University along with colleagues at Birmingham City University and the University of Birmingham in July 2025. So I'm very excited about this. It's going to be a great conference, I'm sure, and the next 2 years will be very busy with getting things ready for that and welcoming hundreds of corpus linguists to the city of Birmingham in 2025. But for today's episode, we will be hearing the story of Sketch Engine, a corpus query and management system from Lexical Computing, and one of the best known and widely used corpus platforms, which is soon to celebrate 20 years of facilitating research in lexicography, language learning, and of course, corpus linguistics more broadly. So here to tell us the story of Sketch Engine is Dr. Miloš Jakubíček, CEO of Lexical Computing, a research company working in the area of language technologies, primarily at the intersection of corpus and computational linguistics and computer lexicography. An NLP researcher and software engineer, Miloš's research interests are devoted mainly to two fields: effective processing of very large text corpora and parsing of morphologically rich languages. The story of Sketch Engine is a big one, and I'm very excited to hear all about this tool and how it came to be in the position that it's in today as such a widely used and widely known corpus tool. So without any further ado, let's welcome Miloš to CorpusCast. Hi, hello Miloš. Welcome.
Hello, Robbie. Sorry, Mike. Thanks for the introduction.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to speak with you. We have met face to face long before the days of the pandemic, but it has been several years, and so it's great to get the chance to catch up with you here. And I believe you're joining us from a recording booth, which is actually more high tech than what I get here, mostly sitting at home with my cat somewhere purring nearby. Where are you at the moment?
Indeed, I'm at a small booth that is equipped for the time when we record pronunciation for dictionary entries, so that the editors that actually make the recordings are not interrupted by me laughing loudly, for instance. And of course, it's a room that we occasionally also use for calls like this.
Great. Well, yes, you're in the perfect place to record a podcast. So very much appreciate you being there. And we'll get started now with a big question, I suppose. I always ask at the start of each episode, which is, what does corpus linguistics mean to you?
I think that's a good question to start with, and perhaps my answer will be a bit bored, but I certainly see corpus linguistics as a way for linguistics to be simply more scientific. It might not be a very popular, opinion, but I'm quite convinced about it. So, corpora, the development of corpora and tools that allow researchers to interrogate corpora simply made it possible for people to discuss their findings and to base their findings on some, factual evidence, right? So for me, this is really about making linguistics more evidence-based.
I see. Yes, and this is a theme that does come up often in these discussions around scaling up and sort of improving the empirical validity of the claims that people are making. And certainly Sketch Engine, as we'll get on to discussing, with the size of many of the corpora that are hosted on there, well into the billions and billions of words, certainly helps with that endeavor specifically. But I want to hear more about your own journey, I suppose. Tell us about your early days in your academic life, and sort of give us a sketch, pardon the pun, of your own kind of career.
Yeah, I think my own career is the older I get, the more sort of fascinated I am by the fact how I ended up doing what I'm doing. Years ago, 25 years ago, before entering the university, I was interested in both maths and languages. My mother used to be a teacher of German at a high school, and then after 1990, after the Velvet Revolution here in Czechia, she started working as a court translator for German. And my father was an economist. And so I had both of these influences in my family. And by the time I had to choose which university to go to, I chose Masaryk University, following the advice of my high school teacher, basically, who said, when you can't really decide, you should go for the more universal option. And that was one of the things that led to the fact that I'm sitting here in front of you at this moment. Because at Masaryk University, at the Faculty of Informatics, where I've enrolled into a computer science bachelor program, I've soon met people from the Natural Language Processing Center here. That was by the time led by Professor Pala, and where already Pavel Rychlý, one of the founders of Lexical Computing, the company behind Sketch Engine, was employed. Soon before I was finishing the bachelor's, I started working in the NLP lab, and perhaps a year after that, I started being involved in Sketch Engine and in the company behind it. That was another sort of happy coincidence that I simply met those people here at the Masaryk University by that time. And my background really is computer science for both the bachelor and master studies, with specialization for natural language processing. And at the end of my master's, I studied in Saarbrücken for half a year at the corpus linguistics department. And then I returned back to Masaryk University, and I did my PhD here as well. Kind of interrupted because in the middle of doing my PhD, Adam Kilgariff, who we will be talking about later, to a great extent, I believe, the founder of Sketch Engine, died. And I took over the company. For a couple of years, I had no time continuing with my PhD and finished it a bit later. When I look back, before I even entered the university, I was working in an NGO for a short while as a volunteer. And we did a lot of youth exchanges between, German, French, and Czech youngsters. And we, visited former concentration camps and so on. And a friend of mine whose family basically all ended up in Auschwitz, and he himself was lucky to escape from another of the concentration camp. And by the time he was, over 80 certainly, when I consulted what to do, which university to go to, with him, at some point he mentioned like, well, you say that you like math and you say that you like languages. Perhaps you could make some software for dictionaries. By the time, I must admit, I found that idea completely silly. And just because I really valued that person, it was my dear friend, an elderly person, a Holocaust survivor. I just didn't go into an argument telling him, come on, software for dictionaries, such a stupid idea. it took me quite some years until I actually record this in my memory. After being employed in lexical computing for perhaps 5 or 6 years, that actually, he was right, and I was stupid back then. But that's what happened.
Wow, that's a fascinating story. That the seed was sort of planted in your mind, and clearly stayed with you, even subliminally.
I guess so.
So
knowing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just want to pick up on something. You said that you started out by studying computer science as an undergraduate. Yeah. At what point was the linguistic kind of aspect introduced? Was that sort of part of that undergraduate program, or did the NLP/corpus linguistics have come a little bit later?
Yes, it was part of the undergraduate program already, because we were able to choose, say, specializations for the general computer science background, and in order to choose a specialization, one had to take additional courses. And those courses were, partly technically oriented as for the natural language processing, and partly they were simply linguistically oriented. And, I find it absolutely necessary. Anyone, I would really say that anyone who wants to do NLP properly needs to have some sort of elementary linguistic background to understand simply the data one is working with.
Do you sort of sense, or do you observe that there are a lot of people in what you might call computational linguistics, natural language processing, who don't necessarily have much of a linguistics background?
Well, definitely, because part of the community is simply being driven by machine learning engineers who apply machine learning approaches to all kinds of data set. Whether it is in the field of vision or text processing, speech processing, you name it. And for them, they take natural language just as another data set, so pretty much random data set to work with. I'm not particularly happy with that. Not for being a purist about these things and insisting on anyone having some kind of formal education in terms of the theory and so on and so on, but rather from the perspective of my experience, based on that those results, scientific results coming from these approaches frequently suffer some rather major problems in terms of evaluation, in terms of data annotation, in terms of actually making the results usable outside of a lab environment, right? So yes, I think part of the community definitely doesn't follow what I would see as a sort of preferential way. But that's the way it is. Then there is the other half that I think understands very well what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe this is an oversimplification, but I see it perhaps as a bit of two sides of the same coin, where you might have computer scientists who are working with language data but don't have so much of a linguistic background. So methodologically, at least in terms of the working with data at scale and the statistical approach and things like that, highly sophisticated, but maybe the theoretical input and the theoretical interpretation, not so much. On the other side, maybe you have lots of linguists who enter into the corpus linguistics space, and a lot of the issues in corpus linguistics are probably on balance more methodological than they are theoretical, relatively, in terms of misapplication of a certain methodological approach, or misinterpretation of the output of a statistical analysis. Would you say that? That might be completely oversimplified.
Yes, I agree. I understand what you're saying, definitely. I would be maybe quite self-critical here in terms that, at conferences, I frequently meet people with background in linguistics saying, I know I should learn more about programming, statistics, regular expressions, and so on. And I try to do that, and so on. And regardless of whether people achieve or not, they are aware of this. Whereas I'm much less, convinced about this happening at the other side of the coin.
Okay.
I'm not really meeting a lot of, NLP people or generally, IT guys, programmers saying, I'm now working on whatever, parsing, and, I think I should learn more about the syntax of natural languages. Sadly, right? I understand what you're saying, and I would sort of, with my background being primarily computer science, I would be self-critical here.
I see. Well, let's get started on Sketch Engine itself. Of course, we're here to have a chat about the story of Sketch Engine, which is, I believe, about to celebrate its 20th anniversary or birthday, I suppose. But let's start with the big picture for those who may not be familiar with Sketch Engine, maybe haven't used it before. What is Sketch Engine in the sort of the broadest sense, and who's it for?
Yeah, I guess in the broadest sense, Sketch Engine is a tool where one can inspect large text corpora, and where one can also build their own corpora. So it's a tool that at the beginning was primarily designed for lexicographers, people making dictionaries. But of course, over the years became widely used in the area of corpus linguistics, translation, natural language processing for all kinds of technical aspects and technical applications of large textual data sets, including language modeling these days, for translators and terminologists, and so on, copywriters. So generally, I see Sketch Engine as a platform for inspecting, interrogating, querying large textual data sets that might be coming from very heterogeneous sources and might be applied to very many applications.
So let's go back to 2003, which is when I believe Lexical Computing Limited was founded. You mentioned the two co-founders, Adam Kilgareth and Pavel Reichli. What can you tell us? I appreciate you weren't there from day one, but what can you tell us about the early days and the original idea, I suppose, behind Sketch Engine?
Yeah, I can certainly tell you what I've heard from both these guys, and it's actually a continuation of the series of coincidences that I was mentioning earlier. Pavel and Adam met completely randomly at a conference in Brighton, in the UK, where Adam was living, and Adam was by the time looking for a decent corpus tool that he could use for when he was working as a consultant for various publishers in the UK. And all the ones that he has met before suffered from that or other issues. Sometimes they suffered from technical issues. Sometimes they suffered from legal issues because they were, produced by a university, and the IPR was completely with the university and so on. And by that time, he met Pavel, who was a few years after his PhD. He finished his PhD in 1999. And his PhD is more or less a fraction of the open source part of Sketch Engine that we have these days. It's not the complete no Sketch Engine that we call it. It was a portion of that back then. But there was something available that he was then following up on after completing his PhD, and he presented some first versions of a graphical user interface that was not even web-based back then to Adam, and Adam was immediately interested, and so I think a year after that, actually a year and a half after that, Adam founded a company, Lexical Computing, and started doing what he previously was doing for his customers, mainly the publishing companies, throughout Lexical Computing, and the company started slowly but steadily growing, with Pavel basically managing the technical part and Adam managing the business, as well as scientific in terms of the lexicography scientific.
I see. So essentially, it started out as a freelance consultancy project for lexicography, right? Yeah. I remember when I first heard of Sketch Engine. I think I was in my master's year at Lancaster, and I just joined the Centre for Corpus Approaches to Social Science there, and I was learning about a sort of broader kind of the world out there and the tools and the methods that people are using, and I remember thinking that's a strange name for what's it, sketching. I didn't sort of see the connection, and some corpus tools kind of vary, I guess, in the creativity in their name. Recently you've got like Lanxbox, and okay, it's a box of tools from Lancaster. Okay, fine. Ancon. Okay, it's a concordance, and the guy's called Anthony. I should just say the guy. I know Lawrence well. He won't be saying that, but Lawrence Anthony. But Ancon, it's named after him, and it's a concordance. Fine. But that Sketch Engine, I thought, what? None of this sort of on the surface, connects. But of course, it comes from the word sketch, which I think was kind of the big kind of early innovation, right? What does a word sketch offer, as opposed to other approaches to, well, what is a word sketch, and what does it offer compared to kind of other approaches to exploring the usage of a word?
Yeah, if you go to the Sketch Engine website and you look up the definition of a word sketch, it says roughly it's a one-page summary of a word's collocational behavior. Of course, that's a very neat one-sentence definition, but I guess the longer version of that is actually that what Adam simply wanted to do was investigating the collocational behavior, the contextual behavior of words through collocations, while using as much linguistic information as possible, right? So going back to the time around 1999, there were already many lexicographic association measures developed for finding collocations. Perhaps the most widely known was the MI score by Church and Hanks, paper from 1991, if I'm not mistaken. And those were all based on the fact that you simply look at a certain window around the keyword in context. So you take the 5 preceding and 5 following words, for instance, and that's what you use for the calculations. And everyone knows, and everyone knew already back then, that this is kind of suboptimal. So what Adam simply wanted to do, because he had a NLP background as well, he wanted to use the tools that were already back then available for part of speech tagging, lemmatization, partially also parsing, at least shallow parsing, to be able to produce better results, right? And through that, he was able to come up with collocations that were clustered by means of different syntactic relation. Let's put it very simply. And he was looking for a name, how to call that. He was very creative what concerns naming as well. So he started calling that a word sketch, and then the final product was simply called Sketch Engine as an engine that produces word sketches. It took quite a long time, though, I think, until when you were Googling for Sketch Engine, it took a while until the product became the first item, not preceded by various other types of engines, hydraulic engines and other types of engines. So
illustrations of engines, right?
Yeah, exactly. Illustrations of
engines. Yeah.
So it was kind of an investment into the name, I guess.
Yeah, but it is absolutely kind of exclusively kind of connected now. It's such a unique, I guess, collocation in and of itself. Sketch Engine. It's not something you really hear put together in many other contexts. As we said earlier, you are currently, now the CEO of Lexical Computing. You weren't there from day one. Tell us a bit more about at what point you sort of joined Lexical Computing and became involved with developing and working on Sketch Engine.
Yeah, going back to sort of my story, I started at Masaryk University in the bachelor course in 2005, and then in 2007 I started being involved in the NLP lab, and in 2008 I started partially working for Lexical Computing. So I was there basically from 2008, as I was saying, the company was slowly but steadily growing, and this kind of organic grow is something that I try to maintain, and I'm kind of happy with in terms of the sustainability of the whole thing. So by the time of 2010, there were some 7 people, maybe, including Adam, involved in the company. And that was already sort of enough to justify making a separate branch here in Czechia. So by the time there was a separate company owned by the UK one that was simply employing the local team here in Brno, and that I was kind of administratively managing as well, which was very simple with such a small team, and the whole company then simply continue growing. At this moment, we've got some 25 co-workers. Not all of them working full time, of course, and some of them still being, for instance, PhD students. And the structure changed a bit because after Adam died, I've reshuffled or reorganized the structure so that the mother company is now here in Czechia, and the branch is kept in the UK.
I see, and we will, talk more in a little bit about Adam sort of specifically and his role and those circumstances. In terms of how Sketch Engine has changed over the last nearly 2 decades, there's a paper that I always cite whenever I say that I've used Sketch Engine in my research, which is Kilgareth et al. 2004, and that is kind of the introduction, I suppose, to Sketch Engine, very much at the very beginning of its journey. And then in 2014, a decade later, there's another paper by Adam and a larger team, including yourself, of course, by that point, reviewing the first decade of Sketch Engine and talking about how, its sort of utility has grown a little bit, or quite a lot actually, in the first decade. And you see it going from kind of really purely about lexicography, as you said, the original impetus, to expanding into sort of language teaching, translation, discourse analysis, kind of more broadly defined corpus linguistics research. Assuming or hypothetically, let's say that there's a Sketch Engine team 2024 paper. I'm not
There is one here, I think. I can say that immediately.
Okay, good. I was hoping there would be. That's good. I genuinely didn't know if there would be or not, but I kind of thought, yeah, that would be good. So maybe on the basis that this actually exists or it will exist, can you give us a bit of a preview of what you observe has changed in the second decade of its life?
Yeah. I guess I guess I would split that into two aspects. One is the, say, business-oriented one. And what regards Sketch Engine and Lexical Computing as a company, I think the biggest change between 2013 or 14 and 2023 definitely is some kind of professionalization. Going back to 2013, the company still had, eight people maybe, including Adam, including one accountant, and that scope doesn't really allow for many bells and whistles in terms of lots of things. Actually, these days, I think we've got the luxury, and we have managed to sort of professionalize the team, and also I would say the daily operation of the company. Thanks to the fact that things simply got more stable. The 10 years were definitely very turbulent for the company, because in late 2014, Adam was diagnosed with cancer and he died in May 2015. And I think for a couple of years, the company was just sort of trying to get over it. Which we managed. That's certainly something that I think all of us can be proud of, that we were able to maintain Adam's legacy. We were having a celebration of Lexical Computing's 20th just about a month ago, before the ELEX conference started here in Brno. And we had a small party where I was saying, well, all that we try to do is not to destroy what he started. And I think, that's, I think that really fits, right? And thanks to things becoming more stable and more professional, we are now able to do just a lot more than we were able to do before. And that's the other aspect. So what changed for the users, and in terms of the functionalities and so on. So Sketch Engine at this time offers corpora for over 100 languages, which is a lot, and all of these languages, they need some care, particularly because we are still convinced that linguistically informed methods for many applications work better and are worth the efforts. Despite living in the era of, large language models, that definitely, are beneficial and are just, another evolutionary step in terms of the whole natural language processing. There are still, use cases where we believe in linguistically informed methods, and that means that we need to maintain, a set of processing tools for 100 languages, and have, native speakers, consultants for 100 languages, and so on and so on and so on. And thanks to, the company slowly but steadily growing, we were able to do that simply, as well as to reach other types of users that primarily were not addressed and are not discussed a lot, definitely, and not in the 2004 paper, and only marginally in the 2014 paper, like, for instance, the terminologists. So we've a couple of years ago, we've developed a standalone tool for extraction of terminology that is based on Sketch Engine, and it's certainly an area where we have a quickly growing user base of people, users, companies, corporations that are actually not related to lexicography, not related to linguistics or corpus linguistics, that don't have corpora. They just have texts that they need to process. They don't really want to know about corpora. But but they take care about terminology, about consistent use of glossaries that they have developed industrially or academically. That doesn't matter, and so on. Many years ago, actually, I think already when the company started, one of the slogans that Adam was using for a sketch engine was "Corpora for all," right? I think we are certainly not there, and I think that actually, if there is one advantage or sort of one big benefit of large language models becoming so, or having such a big attention from general public, is that thanks to ChatGPT, soon everyone will know what a corpus is, right? Which is sometimes also funny, because a couple of weeks ago I've read a newspaper article claiming that the OpenAI company invented the term token. So yes, well, regardless of who invented the term and so on, I think that part of the sketch engine contribution is bringing corpora even to people that really are not interested in corpora and aware of text being called corpora, but making use of corpus linguistics.
This is a complete aside, but it's very interesting that you brought up AI and at the recent Corpus Linguistics conference, that was coming up quite a lot, of course, in conversations, with it being really, it's not even been a year since ChatGPT was released in November 2022. And there were, lots of discussions of sort of around what impact that may have specifically in the field of corpus linguistics in terms of research, but also tools and tool development. I mean, again, do you see sort of that kind of direction of AI informed corpus analysis? Do you see that as kind of the almost inevitable path that we're going to end up going down? Or
well, yes and no. There's no doubt that this evolution of statistical methods in NLP and language models development associated with that will continue, and that it will be used and will be heavily used, and that the fact that it became openly available and easy to use, and that it produces something that NLP struggles so far heavily, namely that it produces fluent text, that it no longer looks like machine generated. That will stay, and that it is in principle a good thing and a scientific progress. On the other hand, one of the dogmas of sketch engine, I think, was and will be, I hope definitely, as long as I will be in charge, that one needs to be able to go back to the actual corpus evidence to verify any claims that the automatic tools, regardless of whether it is sketch engine or something else, that the automation has actually established. And I always found that extremely important, because being an NLP researcher, I know what kind of stupid errors may happen across the whole processing pipeline, regardless of tools that you use. Errors simply happen. And for any professional use of corpora, one should be simply able to verify any automatic outputs. And this verification simply means going back to the concordance and read the concordance, right? So one of the things that you can always find in Sketch Engine, in all the functionalities, in all the outputs, is a concordance link that you can click on and check whether, what the system thinks is actually correct, or whether it's a result of some, artifact in the data, or artifact of some technical processing and so on. And the language model as such, it hides all of that, right? It's just a language model. It's a probabilistic distribution with no possibility of backtracking to the actual corpus evidence. So in a way, using that instead of many other existing tools that are there would be methodologically, I think, a step back, right? Now, that's of course then a task for everyone, how to combine the best of both approaches for future development and so on, because there are certainly many tasks that the large language models can handle much better than any other state-of-the-art approaches. In the context of lexicography, this is in the first place definition finding. I mean, Sketch Engine and Lexical Computing has been busy with the automation of dictionary production really for the past 20 years. And making good dictionary definitions, sense definitions, entry definitions, that was one of the hardest tasks, with no real existing solutions that could compete with, human editors. And in this respect, ChatGPT or the language models became really complementary, because they get stuck at many other parts of the sort of lexicographic production, surprisingly, for instance, also including examples finding, because the examples are invented and simply not as good as many other corpus-based approaches. But the definition finding works perfectly, so it would be stupid not to use it, right? What one needs to be able to combine the methods so as to be able to preserve what we actually started with. So to preserve the fact that corpora help linguistics and lexicography be more evidence-based, be more scientific.
I want to ask you about going back to Sketch Engine and looking at the present day. You mentioned that the team has grown over the last 2 decades, and the scale of the operation. Of course, as we said from the beginning, Lexical Computing and by extension, Sketch Engine, it's a commercial operation, and compared to many other corpus tools which are sort of freeware, software or otherwise freely accessible, a benefit of this is the sort of infrastructure around that, and the support and the staff, and sort of being able to respond to queries and implement new functions quite rapidly. What sort of scale in terms of, and I appreciate you may not be able to sort of share specifics, but in terms of the growth of the scale of the users, kind of the user base, and the kind of the size of the operation from that perspective, what's the kind of present day situation looking like in terms of the general popularity of the tool and how many people are using it?
The present day statistics says that Sketch Engine has some 50,000 active users, so 50,000 people that use the tool at least once per month as separate individuals, and those are coming from between 200 and 300 universities worldwide, as well as from, of course, dictionary publishers and various private companies working in NLP, as well as governmental institutions. I guess, the key aspect for us in terms of the business development is that, and I was mentioning that already a couple of times, we like growing, but slowly and steadily. So I've refused any investors that were interested over the years, as well as Adam did. And in a way, Adam founded the company because he needed a vehicle for himself to carry out the research that he liked. And he wasn't able to find that vehicle within the academia, simply. for a number of reasons. Because universities are very good at creativity and generally, I would say, scientific freedom and carrying out basic research and so on. And are simply not so good at providing sustainability and long-term maintenance and so on. And that's just because they are not designed to. They shouldn't be doing that, right? I mean, sometimes people, and I meet people that say that universities should become more, say, business-oriented or something like that. I don't think this is a good idea. I don't believe that one can have both, right? I've been talking to a large number of what is typically called, say, IPR department of university. It has a different name in English that I can't really recall now. Simply the department that you need to talk to when you, for instance, want to sub-license something from a university and so on.
I see. Yeah.
Sorry.
I see. Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
sort of like a part of HR.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of them were always quite desperate in terms of simply not being able to be competitive with the businesses and being hated from inside of the university from becoming an obstacle that prevents people from widespreading their research and so on. And I really think that this is inevitable. The university is here to carry out research and science and teaching and education, not to make daily business. And so therefore, Adam made this small company for himself, so that instead of writing funding proposals, he was invoicing his customers and hereby getting money that allow him to maintain what he liked to do in a sustainable way, with no every 3, 4, 5 years interruption that is inevitable in public funding at some point. And I think that's an attitude that is still partially maintained throughout the company. So half of the staff, maybe not half, certainly a third, are PhDs in either computer science or linguistics. And in a way, this idea of having a vehicle that allows us to do what we like to do, and that many of us would otherwise be doing in an academic context, including myself. This idea simply remains. A series of the coincidences that I've mentioned certainly includes the fact that if Adam hadn't died, I likely would have had a partial affiliation at academia and partial affiliation here in the company. I still have a 5% affiliation with Masaryk University occasionally, teaching and leading some students, but that would be otherwise, I guess, more balanced if Adam would be still here. But things developed in this way, and so the daily operations really look in this way. Having 50,000 users means that just the daily operation of the company is much more demanding than it used to be. So out of the 25 people, there are 3 people who just answer the support emails, which I used to do as well back in 2008 and 9 and 10 and 11. And then, of course, the technical equipment that we need to have in order to be able to provide the service is just much bigger and much more expensive than it used to be. So that's the landscape. I mean, one of my colleagues keeps telling me, don't say we are a small research company, just say we are a research company. And I think I have some sort of soft spot for the small. I mean, there is a reason, I couldn't work in a corporation. So I like being small in a way. And every time we hire someone, I internally think, okay, that's it. That's it. right?
Yeah.
But inevitably next year we hire just another person because we either meet someone who simply fits into the puzzle of services that we provide, or we need someone because just it's too much. So yes, we keep growing despite sometimes trying not to.
Yeah, yeah. As we start to wrap up here, obviously a name that has come up a lot throughout our discussion is, of course, Adam Kilgareth, who, as we've discussed, really the kind of central sort of figure in sort of initiating Sketch Engine, co-founding it, and developing in the first 10 years. As you mentioned, Adam passed away in 2015. And in a previous episode of CorpusCast, Tony McHenry was talking about the Corpus MOOC, the online corpus linguistics course that they have, and that was sort of being developed in the kind of couple of years leading up to Adam passing away, and Tony made a recording of an interview with Adam only, I think, a few months before he died, and I was sort of struck by how openly, Adam documented sort of his final months. He had a blog, and he was very sort of open in discussing this. I wonder, sort of before we finish, you mentioned the word legacy earlier, and I think that's a very appropriate way of putting it. How would you kind of summarize the impact that Adam had, and sort of how you kind of still feel the presence of his influence sort of today, almost 10 years on?
Yeah, well, I mean, the impact really can't be underestimated, to put it very mildly. So Adam was really the person without which there wouldn't ever been lexical computing as Sketch Engine, and so on and so on. And I still remember the time with Adam for frequently. And after he died, I think it was a difficult period for the company, not just business wise, but personally. I because it happened, everything happened also quickly. He was really. I spent a lot of time in 2014 with Adam, more time than typically, just for random occasions as we were meeting with at conferences and so on. Normally we saw each other perhaps 5 times per year, but in 2014 we really spent a lot of time together, and it was not until late summer that he complained during a dinner that I can't eat that much for the dinner because then I have stomach pain. And 2 months after that, he was diagnosed with a stage 4 bowel cancer, and he died 6 months later. So everything happened so quickly that I think it really took us all time to process what's going on, and it took a lot of time for me, definitely. And the legacy of Adam is definitely maintained, not just in terms of Sketch Engine, but I also hope and think in terms of the company culture. So part of the reasons why part of the coincidences that I was mentioning was also the fact that both Adam and Pavel are such a sort of open-minded and welcoming people. So I remember still very well, even though it's almost 20 years when I started in the field, not knowing a thing about corporal lexicography and so on. Adam was a very kind person, and I think that was also a significant contribution to the company that allowed him to actually put together a great team of people that was also interested in continuing after his death, basically. And his legacy is definitely also maintained in terms of the scientific aspects concerning things like maintaining links to concordances so that everyone can check, because that's something that we have learned from him, and that I certainly sign up to. And I still don't. When I said during our birthday party, all my effort all my effort is not to destroy what he started. Yes, I think this is it, right? I'm very proud of the fact that the company keeps going, but the basics of it were founded by Adam, and that's it.
Thank you for sort of sharing your reflections on the massive role that he had in all of this, and it's been really fascinating to hear, more about the story of Sketch Engine and how it's kind of developed into the tool that it is today. And it's certainly something that I use very regularly in my own research, and increasingly, found new ways of using it.
Sorry for stepping in, but maybe when we are talking about Adam's legacy, I could take this opportunity for making some small advertisement. So one of the part of Adam's legacy is also the Adam Kilgarif Prize that he started after Adam's death. And so let me use this opportunity to invite everyone to submit applications, because we had the 5th iteration, I think now. Yes. And there will be another call open by the end of this year. So if people just Google Adam Kilgarif Prize, they can apply. They get some small amount of money, €2,500, I think, and a lifetime access to Sketch Engine as well. So, and we really welcome contributions, particularly from the field of corpus linguistics, of course, which the prize is, designed for, together with computer lexicography. So yes, let me use this opportunity to just invite everyone interested to apply.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for I did want to actually ask you also, about you also run training workshops and things like that. Where should people go if they want to sort of learn more about these kinds of opportunities?
Well, one of the options is to go to our website. The other, perhaps shorter, might be simply Googling. So Adam Kilgarif Prize has a standalone website that is part of Adam's original homepage. The training and courses that we organize are part of the Sketch Engine website, and they are quite easily to be found. There is a dedicated course on lexicography called Lexicom that goes on from 2000. That was actually the event where Adam and Pavel met for the very first time. So yeah, well, just go to our website, and hopefully you should be able to find it easily.
Great. Okay, we're going to finish with some very, very, very quick fire questions. Okay, so let's see how quick these answers. First question is a yes or no. Is research in corpus linguistics living up to its potential?
Oh, yes.
Great. Number 2, what is your number 1 short piece of advice for students embarking on corpus research?
Look at data. I mean, I still believe that reading the corpus, in a way, reading the results, looking into the data, digging deeper is extremely useful, particularly at the beginning, to be able to find out that the deeper you dig, the more you find. And that's a lesson to learn, sort of to know when to stop, but also when to go further.
Couldn't agree more. And finally, what will corpus research look like in 50 years?
I've got no idea. I think it will largely depend on the data that will be available. 50 years ago, there was no internet. Linguistics couldn't be corpus-based because all the corpora we had were, if called corpora, then books, right? Who knows what happens in 50 years? There might be new types of data, in a way, that we are unaware of at this time. Perhaps multimodal data that will allow us to do the same that we now with mostly written text, with conversations and so on. So I would stick to the data. It will be up to the data what the research will look like.
Okay, well, we'll see how things go over the next 50 years. and we can chat then and see if you were right. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. This has been really fascinating to get the chance to chat with you, hear more about your story and of course the story of Sketch Engine. That is it for today's episode of CorpusCast. Thank you for joining us, our viewers and listeners. And do let us know your thoughts about this and other episodes using the hashtag CorpusCast. And you can check out the Aston Corpus Linguistics Research Group on Twitter at Aston Corpus, and you can follow me at LoverMob. CorpusCast is an Aston Originals podcast hosted by me, Robbie Love, and produced by Sam Cook. So thanks again, and thanks one more time to my guest, Miloš Jakubíček. It's been really, really great to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for Robbie once again for inviting me.